When do you guys usually hero?
We don't hero in this guild, man. Stuff.
Kick him.
He said the trigger word.
Maybe.
Oh God!
Kick him. Told you this is a bad idea.
Hey, it's Soul, and welcome, friends, to another episode of Warcraft Weekly. Another chill week of not too much going on. So big news is not something that we should be getting tired of getting, but damn, what a week again. Help by liking this video because you know it's going to be a banger. Subscribe for more, and let's get started with talking about how the World of Warcraft is going to end as we know it. Or is it? I talked about this as the news broke earlier this week. World of Warcraft is going to open up cross-faction instanced grouping in an upcoming minor patch. So it's happening. Warcraft is becoming Peacecraft. The Alliance and Horde are going to literally merge and become the Horde Alliance. Torn and Vulpera from all over are going to be visiting a certain town on a certain server, and then Peacecraft is going to turn into Lovecraft. No, not that. I mean like, sexual. Okay, that's like way worse. But let's slow down a second. Instancing going cross-faction is a big deal, and it is a big undertaking, and there are a lot of possibilities and factors to consider. But when we peel away all of the edge cases and extreme scenarios, will cross-faction really change WoW for everyone at such a degree? I think that for now, nah, not really. I think that for now, the biggest impact of cross-faction is the news and the reactions of cross-faction stuff. But when it drops in the next patch, more on that in a bit, being able to group with people from the opposite faction is going to be less of this earth-shattering, roleplay-breaking woke moment, but more like, hey, I can find or feel a group way easier now. Sweet. There are people who feel offended by cross-faction activity or are otherwise just used to the segregation of players, and the broader conversation of cross-faction content is very, very nuanced, because this challenges nearly 2 decades of separation that some would say is arbitrary, while others would say it's the foundation of this game. Now, I'm going to oversimplify a lot of statements here, but I'm trying to keep the discussion grounded. I posed the question, what segment of players really is going to be the most affected by this step towards dissolving the faction divide? Who's got the most to gain? Pickup groups. Pugs. After this patch, whenever the hell it is, your chosen race will no longer be a debilitating factor when it comes to finding random groups on the group finder. People making groups are going to have a choice to not allow cross-faction grouping, but I'm just going to throw it out there and say that a very small minority of group leaders will practice this. I'm sure they're more interested in just having a competent group. And I've never ran a rated battleground in my life, but others have, and I bet that they would appreciate anything that would help their queue times improve, and this would be one of them. Small groups that have almost complete teams and guilds, notably from the Alliance side, they're going to have a much easier time finding people with this bigger player pool. It's also implied that communities are going to be cross-faction as well. Right now, at least, Battle.net communities are cross-game, but you have to share battle tags, which is kind of like meh. And they've needed this sort of update very badly. And with cross-faction grouping, WoW communities will soon become a cross-faction, region-wide guild of sorts, just without those guild benefits, of course. But which groups are going to be less affected? Not quite sure, but speaking for me, who runs a raid guild on the Horde side, we don't exactly have a need for cross-faction stuff because, well, we're good to go. We already have a team. We don't have holes that need filling. Now, of course, the team can grow, sure. There are people out there, viewers too, who've expressed interest in running with us or joining the guild, but they couldn't because they roll Alliance. And with this, there's now an opportunity for us to play together, and that's fun. But a guild in my situation isn't exactly the target audience of this very big change. A few guildmates actually have Alliance characters, and now, if they want to, they can bring them to raid, but if they dare pop heroism during a fight, I'm gonna call a wipe and kick them from the group. Right? Seriously, I'll use drums before that ever happens. I guess what I'm trying to imply here is that cross-faction, as announced, is something that fills a need without totally upending 17 years of World of Warcraft. Going all the way with dissolving the faction divide, if that is the WoW team's goal, it's going to be a technical hurdle that they're going to implement in stages. Like, there are challenges with certain raids like Icecrown Citadel and Battle of Dazar'alor that they talked about that need to be addressed, and a few comments down here are probably going to show us what solutions there are. The WoW team probably has those ideas in mind already. The question for them, though, is what can be compromised for the sake of getting this done sooner. Ian's announcement is a reflection of what is possible sooner. Sort of like the upcoming solo shuffle, now is the time to try this out before going all in the 10.0. On the other hand, maybe based on feedback that's coming, this might be as far as we'll ever get. The question I have for you folks is, if this is good for you, never mind what we think is best for the game, how does cross-faction going to benefit you, if at all? The announcement of cross-faction also meant officially acknowledging that there's going to be a patch 9.2.5. Crap. This implies a lot of things, and I'll share my take on it before leaving you folks to your predictions. Here's a quote from the blog post. There have been 2 decades worth of code and content crafted with the assumption that parties can only have players with a single faction. And while we want to make this feature as soon as possible, the extent of the change means that it couldn't be ready in time for the upcoming Eternity's End content update. Instead, we're planning to test and release it as part of a subsequent 9.2.5 update. Now let's unpack this and get ready for a lot of headcanon. They, the Blizzard people, made the decision to go cross-faction probably a good while ago. I think they would have liked it to have been available for 9.2. Maybe they started working on it months ago, but somewhere down the line, they saw that it wouldn't fit into their production schedule. That's why it was never mentioned in their 9.2 announcement back in early November. The reason for the headcanon is because I speculate that 9.2.5 is not going to be a patch that we wait like 3 or 4 months for, and then the team finally goes all in for 10.0. I'm willing to bet that 9.2.5 will include cross-faction and very little else, because most of the team is already all in for 10.0. The other week I said that it's possible that WoW's next expansion can launch this year. Yeah, bold claim, but definitely in the realm of possibility. I did also say that if there is going to be a 9.2.5, that we're almost definitely looking at a 2023 release instead. And I still stand by that. It's just that this all depends on what else is going to be in this next patch, because internally, maybe they're probably well underway with cross-faction functionality and they could start pushing 9.2.5 PTR builds very quickly. Back to some actual news, just before the 9.2.5 announcement, the WoW team sent out a blog post informing the community that they would be cracking down on organized boosting communities, like the ones whose names that you're familiar with, but I'm not going to say them because they're kind of like triggers at this point. Reading from the post, as of today, we will now prohibit organizations who offer boosting, matchmaking, escrow, or other non-traditional services, including those offered for gold. But with respect to traditional practices in MMORPGs, they continue saying, this policy update does not restrict individuals or guilds from using the provided in-game tools, as in trade chat, to buy or sell in-game items or activities for in-game currency. However, boosting communities, especially those who operate across multiple realms, are no longer permitted. A later post tried to clear up some confusion, saying that organizations who disruptively advertise across all realms and establish escrow services are the primary target of this policy update. Guilds and individuals who are inviting players from another realm to join them in traditional in-game activities in exchange for gold are allowed as they were before. So basically, if you spam ads in-game trying to get people in on someone else's runs and you're speaking on their behalf, you're gonna get banned. If you try to advertise in the group finder, you're gonna get banned. But if you're a guild advertising on your realm, you are fine. And since the rest of the internet is outside of WoW's jurisdiction, I'm sure that you can spam forums or whatever, but good luck with that. Many players have reported saying that they've been silenced or suspended for advertising theirs or their guild's legitimate carries on their own realm. I hear that many of those were able to be reversed, and I think that this is a combination of, well, the new policy taking effect, auto-reporting being a little bit too aggressive, and players who were just used to reporting spammers, either manually or through add-ons. That's a hiccup that's going to keep going on for a little while, I figure, as the news of this goes around and the WoW team makes adjustments to avoid unnecessary silences and suspensions. Hiccups are nothing new, but overall this change is a very, very good thing. Big boosting is being broken up, leaving big crafting to continue their dominance over the player market. Local boosting was never a big deal in the past, like I've been in a few of those gold DKP runs myself. Organized boosting with region-wide reach, though, that's spam to the point where it disrupts the perception of the World of Warcraft as if this was normal. I mean, it obviously happens, it's just way more visible. And this ban gives an opportunity, not a guarantee, but an opportunity for realms to recover their own sense of identity, with guilds and individuals able to freely advertise and establish their own reputation without outside advertising competing with them. or maybe not. Because this change goes hand in hand with patch 9.2.5. With cross-faction grouping, WoW communities will hope to really shine as becoming, well, kind of like boost shops of sorts. I mean, it sounds heinous, right? But hear me out. Organizations can't advertise boost sales, and I bet a WoW community would not be able to spam trade advertising their community without breaking the end user license agreement or the EULA. But now the spotlight can be shown on the WoW community feature, notably the search function. All you have to do is, go to the search thing, type in boost, and find the most reputable community via word of mouth and go from there. There's no spam, no brokers needed. Players can just run a search and reach out to a community when they are interested. You've been able to do that now. It just seemed that spamming was more effective than communities. It seems that in the near future, searching for a community is pretty much the only way to advertise cross-server. Put your billboard up and hope that interested parties swing by. This week, Activision Blizzard posted their quarterly earnings reports, something they made money, big whoop, but there were two very interesting points to bring up, all in one bullet point actually. In the report, Blizzard is planning substantial new content for the Warcraft franchise in 2022, including new experiences in World of Warcraft and Hearthstone, and getting all new mobile Warcraft content into players' hands for the first time. Mobile World of Warcraft content, Very interesting. Just a year ago, in another quarterly report, they were working on multiple mobile free-to-play Warcraft experiences, so presumably these are games that were being made in incubation, but one managed to crawl to the surface. So more Warcraft stuff is coming to mobile devices this year. Yeah, I'll take it. That's pretty exciting, actually. Most folks who've been speculating have had a sort of mobile pet battle experience in mind. Maybe have an adventure similar to Pokemon Go, where we're running around looking for trouble. And really, though, it could be anything. But I am willing to bet that it's not meant to be as high profile or premium as, say, Diablo Immortal, which had a BlizzCon reveal and demos and betas and alphas in no particular order, obviously. If it is coming out this year and it is meant to have a lot of fanfare, we probably would have heard about it last year to generate hype, so it could have its own time for demos, alphas, and betas, and for Wowhead to data mine and reveal every little detail. All we have is a bullet point, but this is going to be worth keeping an eye out for, especially if it's free because, it's free. What have you got to lose? The other small detail that I want to overanalyze is what it means to include new experiences in the World of Warcraft. Maybe it's patch 9.2. Guess what, everyone? 9.2 is confirmed for this year. Wow! Maybe this implies the cross-faction improvements coming in 9.2.5. Maybe it's their way of ensuring investors that the 10.0 is planned for release this year. And maybe they're just words. There's a new build this week as usual, and we're definitely winding down on big additions as the team starts doing tuning passes before the patch releases in maybe 2 weeks. Place your bets. I'm probably gonna lose money, but well, there we go. There's at least one quality of life addition. Soul Cinders will be tradable in this patch, and thank goodness, I have 10,000 of these suckers and not enough to do with them. Also, the creation catalyst is finally testable on the PTR. Now, if you've been paying attention to the channel over the past couple of days, you might have heard that I'm not very thrilled at first glance of this feature. It seems like only Season 3 items can be converted into tier pieces. So what I mean by that is stuff earned from the big three: raiding, PvP, Mythic Plus stuff. And from my current testing so far, nothing that you get from the new zone Zereth Mortis will be eligible to turn into tier stuff. Every time I've brought this subject up, I've also tried to make it clear that I have not fully tested this feature. I do want to obtain a piece of Sand Fury gear to see if this will change into tier, and if it does, that's great. I will eat crow all day. And more importantly, there's a path for solo players. So I hope to have findings, or if any of you have been on the PTR to maybe check this out, let me know and maybe we can put this thing to rest. In the meantime though, this has sparked a bit of discussion when it comes to how players are treated in the World of Warcraft. I'm not going to get too deep into the subject here. Instead, we'll just scratch the surface and talk about how we identify these players, these behaviors. I've observed that different behaviors in the World of Warcraft are often defined with overly simplistic terms, notably the term casual. Lots of people use it. I try to resist it, but I use it too. And I think that going forward, I'm going to try and be more clear on what sort of audience I'm referring to. I think I made a mistake by looking at people who don't run group content and labeling them as casuals because of everyone's familiarity to the term, and have since sort of switched it to identifying these folks as solo players because that's more specific and it keeps the discussion focused on the correct target audience. Because I have to ask myself, like, what is a casual, really? Is a solo player who plays 40 hours a week between multiple alts and works the auction house to make 1 million gold a month a casual because they don't run group content? What about the role player with a female Draenei who puts tons of effort into having, like, all sorts of transmog options so they can... are they less immersed into the game than the Keystone Master who plays only on the weekends? Or the guild that gets together to slam mythic raids for a couple of weeks and then when they clear it super fast, they quit until the next season? More and more, it feels like the term casual lost its meaning. There are too many different opinions on its definition. There's too much criteria that no one can agree on. It's an unreliable label when we take this from discussion to discussion. And in WoW discourse especially, at best, it's used way too broadly. At worst, it's derogatory. It's an insult. But I don't want y'all to worry. I'm not here to police folks and say,
hey, you can't be calling those people casuals because that's insulting.
No. But I'm probably going to at least ask, who is it exactly that you're talking about, and see if we can keep that discussion going. In 9.2, it's not casuals, but it's solo players who might be left out of a path towards tier, which is, as tradition in WoW. Tier set bonuses have mostly been the perk of the raider, and 9.2 opens up opportunities for people who run dungeons and PvP after some very intense discussion over the years about like this need to cross over to the other activities just to get the thing that we want, even if it's not something that we're interested in. It seems that, with some compromises, the big three is getting what each other wants. It's like, hey folks, tier's coming back in 9.2. It's a big thing to celebrate, but not you solo players. Y'all can sit down. No. So I'm going to continue to test this out, and I hope that my conclusions are, in fact, wrong. Until then, though, this is where we're at, and that's the show. This build was predictably not a release candidate, which would have meant that they were done, and any other changes would be coming in the form of hotfixes. So stuff's not done, which should be mostly a relief for folks, although many players are, well, they're very impatiently waiting for the new patch. The impression that I have of it so far is still pretty good, despite the possible dent with this creation catalyst. I think back to earlier expansions offerings, and while 9.2 will have some pretty fun stuff, I have to admit that Horrific Visions and Corruption made 8.3 like one of my favorite final patches because things just got like super crazy. Meanwhile, Mists of Pandaria's last patch with the Timeless Isle continues to be celebrated as this fantastic piece of content while it was like super boring for me. Like, during that patch, after a while, my guild stopped raiding and took a break. And that was the last expansion that ever happened. Later on, we still raided Hellfire Citadel every week during the long lull when that was out, but it's probably because we were also making all that garrison money. Anyway, my parting question for you folks at home and wherever, what was your favorite end of expansion patch in World of Warcraft? There are no wrong answers except for Cataclysm. Feel free to share that or any other things that you've got about today's show in a comment. A huge thanks to our lovely Twitch subscribers for doing squats with me, and gratitude for our patrons, including Gert Jan, who I must have butchered the pronunciation there, but thank you for the generosity. And thank you too, viewer, for making it to the end. I hope you all have a great weekend. I will see you Monday in case there is another bombshell announcement. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.